connecting your brain and body with interactive games and tests. Why is there no physical activity in today's health physical? Trazer is an holistic technology used to rehabilitate, prevent falls, and improve sport performance. Trazer reports provide you, your clinician, your physical therapist, or athletic trainer objective data to make decisions on your health and performance over time. Measure what matters to change your game. Take the Trazer Challenge. Confidence, growth, connected by Trazer.
All right, welcome into another edition of Oh What a Show. We are back after a brief hiatus to work out some kinks, but we're happy to be here and give you the best in Orioles coverage. I'm your host, Paul Valley. Joining me, as always, from the Give That Fan a Podcast and Utah Street Report, we have Ryan Blake and our resident Sideline Sports Network big wig, John Shearer, is with us as always. Gentlemen, good evening to you. How are you today?
Whew, better than the Angelos family.
I'm good, man. I don't know about you guys, but it's
yeah,
no doubt. It's good to be back. I'm excited to do this again.
Yeah, man, it's definitely great to be back. Not great to be talking about another black eye on the organization that we root for and cover, but here we are. As John alluded to, the Angelos family with some legal issues going on between them. Louis Angelos, if you haven't heard, there was an article by Tim Prudente and Justin Fenton. Justin Fenton, of course, the author of the book We Own This City, the basis for the HBO miniseries of the same name. They have a new website coming out called the Baltimore Banner that should be up and running here soon. And they gave us a little bit of a preview this past week with an article on a lawsuit that Louis Angelos is filing against his brother John and his mother Georgia, basically claiming that John has underhandedly taken sole control of the franchise, with one line in the suit in particular that has Orioles fans up in arms. I'm going to read that line to you, and it says, quote, John intends to maintain absolute control over the Orioles, to manage, to sell, or if he chooses, to move to Tennessee, where he has a home and where his wife's career is headquartered, without having to answer to anyone, according to the lawsuit. Of course, the one line in there, to move to Tennessee, has Orioles fans up in arms. This is a 47-page document. On my other show, The Bat Around for Press Box Sports, we had the author of the article, Justin Fenton, on the show this past Saturday, and he said in those 47 pages, there is no language that says that there's any allegations about John trying to move the team to Tennessee. With that in mind, gentlemen, your knee-jerk reaction to this lawsuit.
So I just want to make sure that fans don't freak out over the Orioles moving and going to Tennessee, and it's, everything, the sky is falling, because in this article, it also did say that Mrs. Angelos felt it was in the trust's best interest to sell the team, but that John Angelos has attempted to prevent that. So if you read into the article, it actually mentions about how John is against this. If anybody is against it, John is the one that doesn't want to move the team. So make sure we calm down and we don't freak out and say, well, John's going to sell the team because he can do whatever he wants. It sounds like he's the one, if there's anybody in this, that doesn't want to move the team, for what it's worth.
And Ryan, before you comment with what John just said, I do have John Angelos released a statement this morning, and I'd like to read what a key point in this statement says. Since I was appointed chairman and CEO according to my parents' expressed wishes and voted as the control person for the team by the 30 major league clubs, I have taken significant steps to ensure that our beloved franchise's future remains in Charm City. Just 2 months ago, we celebrated the Maryland General Assembly passing a bill promising to put $1.2 billion into reinvesting and reimagining the Camden Yards Sports Complex, which includes Oriole Park, ensuring the team will continue to play right here in downtown Baltimore for generations to come. Maryland is committed to keeping our team in this great state, and I am equally committed to keeping the Orioles at the heart of our state. That statement right there should really kind of calm people's nerves down a little bit here. Ryan?
Yeah, whether you believe John or not, I mean, it feels like keeping up with the Kardashians. It's one of those situations to me where you either want to know what's going on with the Angelos family or you don't care. And I think if you don't care, that's fine. I don't think there's a lot of concern about the team moving to Nashville. Again, whether or not you believe what John said in his statement, I do think that he has made a concerted effort, as John here pointed out, that he does not want to move the team. He's got his roots here in Baltimore, and I think that, for at least the foreseeable future, I don't think there's any real concern. We've got a beautiful ballpark, a great city, a great fan base when the team is winning, which is to be expected. But like I said, I think it's one of those scenarios where you don't have to be concerned as a fan if you're not really interested in the family drama side of it.
And to be fair here, even if John and Lewis and the Angelos family in general decides that they do want to sell the team, selling the team and relocating the team are two different things. They can sell to a local investor that wants to keep the team in Baltimore. And furthermore, if they decide they want to sell, Major League Baseball can stick their hand in this and say, we'll allow you to sell, but you have to sell to somebody who's going to keep the team in Baltimore. Right, because there are two other teams right now that have a better shot at getting to Nashville and Las Vegas, and that's the Tampa Bay Rays and the Oakland Athletics, not to mention the fact that baseball does want to expand. So they could easily just add two more teams. Well, maybe not easily, but there is plans for expansion sometime in the future to 32 teams from 30. What two cities are most likely to get a baseball team?
Vegas.
Nashville and Vegas. Exactly.
Definitely Vegas.
So why move a team that has the crown jewel baseball stadiums to another state, another city, when you could just as well make that an expansion city?
Not the one thing that bothered me in this, and we've all kind of sort of known this, but it's all alleged. Everything in here is alleged. You can't say whether it's true or not because everything's alleged. That's why it's a lawsuit. But it did claim that 2019 and John Angelos ordered former Orioles outfielder Brady Anderson fired as part of an effort to remove people who would oppose his actions. That did bother me when he got fired because, I mean, obviously we all know what Brady Anderson means to this organization. Just to get rid of a guy that means so much to the fan base and just the organization's history, that doesn't sit well with me. Whether you, like you said, Ryan, whether you are in this drama or you don't care about it, something like that does bother me because that he's meant a lot. Brady Anderson's meant a lot. And if that really is a power struggle to where you're just going to get rid of people that are not with you, that are anybody that's not with you, they're gone. That bothers me. That I have a problem with. That I will definitely keep my eyes and ears open for. Because whether you care about all the other stuff, something like that, like I said, Brady Anderson means a lot. We've seen Cal Ripken really hasn't gotten to be, you know what I mean, like a big part of this organization because of same type of thing in the past. So just to kind of like push away your guys, I mean, you've pushed away guys like Adam Jones, Nick Markakis in the past. Like these are guys that mean so much to your organization's history and your fan base, and you continue to push away these guys. I just don't get it.
That's fair. I do want to chime in real quick on that, at risk of spending too much time on this one topic, but I feel differently about the Brady Anderson situation only because if you take away the sentimental side of it with, obviously Brady Anderson was a great player for this franchise. He was one of my favorite players growing up. I was born in 94, so I grew up in the Brady Anderson era.
Yep.
I love the guy, but in terms of his role with the team, he didn't really seem to have one. He was just kind of involved in different affairs. I don't want to call it meddling, but it was kind of that kind of situation in the sense that he was just kind of there and he wasn't really coaching. He wasn't really part of the front office, but yeah, I think they either needed to kind of find a specific role for him or cut ties. And obviously they went with the latter, whether we like that or not.
It's sad that they can't find a role for a guy like that has so much knowledge of the game and, has done so many great things in the game. You can't find a spot for a guy like that, in the organization. Then again, we've had our front office issues many times.
And here's the thing about Brady Anderson, and to Ryan's point, So Brady Anderson had the ear of ownership because he was Peter Angelos' buddy. Peter Angelos loved him. So Brady, even though he was the executive vice president to Dan Duquette's executive president, but he seemed to at times have more power than Dan Duquette because he had the ear of ownership that Dan Duquette didn't have. And then on top of that, things that he would do would supersede what Buck Showalter and what Dan Duquette wanted. Like the Orioles will want their guys working out with their personal trainers, and Brady would be like, "No, I'll come out to California and work out with me." And one of my mentors, Stan the Fan Charles, he was talking to me the other day, and he said to me that he had a buddy who is a general manager in Major League Baseball, and he asked him if he had any interest in the Orioles' opening position when Duquette was getting fired, and the guy said, the first thing I would ask him is what's going on with Brady Anderson, because that guy didn't really have a role, and yet he was superseding everything that Dan Duquette and Buck Showalter were trying to do. So this, to me, to go along with Ryan's point, I was okay with it because Brady was meddling, for lack of a better term, in the operations of the organization. And with that guy, if you have a general manager, what the hell is Brady doing? Right. Yeah. So it was probably time to go. And in that article on the Baltimore Banner, they said that John Angelos basically was like, look, Mike Elias, you got to fire him because I can't have people in here trying to supersede what I'm trying to do. Because he had Peter's ear, he didn't have John's ear, and John's now the control person of the Baltimore Orioles.
That just sounds like poor ownership, poor everything up front, right? Because if you have a guy like that just kind of meddling, as you said, and nobody can do it, nobody's doing anything about it, but he's in the pocket of the owner, like that's bad ownership. Like that's just a poor job all the way around. I mean, that's kind of like when you watch the Dallas Cowboys and you're not really sure who's in charge, whether it's Steven or Jerry, you're not really sure at times who's in charge when they do the draft. Jerry wants this guy, Steven wants this guy. And it's like,
whatever
somebody's got to be,
Jerry gets.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody's got to be in charge, but there's not really anybody taking charge. So that's kind of what it feels like.
Well, and we'll see what happens with this civil suit. A lot of times these civil suits can take years. Now, if this is all speculatory on Luis Angelos' side, this thing could get tossed out. They could settle. We'll see what happens. I don't know enough about the legal process to be able to speak any further on it. I'm just giving you the information that I know after talking to the author of the article. And he even said on the social media handle, this is a developing story with way more to come. So we'll keep our eyes and ears open and hope that we figure out what's going on further down the line. With that in mind, let's move on to what's happening now with the Baltimore Orioles today. As we know, Anthony Santander and Keegan Aiken are added to the restricted list. We're reading the tea leaves here because the team didn't make an official announcement about why, but both of these guys spent time on the COVID injured list last year. Toronto, and more so Canada, does not allow unvaccinated people into their country. So they're on the restricted list. They're going to miss the 4-game series, and they're being replaced by Kyle Stowers, number 7 prospect in the organization according to Baseball America, number 8 by MLB Pipeline, and Rico Garcia. Now, with Kyle Stowers, he's the Orioles co-minor league player of the year from 2021 along with Adley Rutschman. He's slashing .253, 356, 545, 12 home runs, 16 doubles, and 34 RBIs this season for Norfolk. He's going to be making his major league debut, batting 8th and playing left field for the Orioles tonight. Guys, Kyle Stowers is finally here. What are your thoughts on this?
I'm excited. I'm very, very excited. The big thing with Kyle Stowers for me coming into the season was I wanted to see him cut back on his strikeouts. And he still strikes out a fair amount, which is kind of to be expected of a player like him. He had a 32% strikeout rate across 3 levels last year. He climbed all the way from high A Aberdeen up to Norfolk by the end of the season. He's cut that strikeout rate down to about 25% this year. And his numbers are pretty similar otherwise across the board when, like you said, Paul, he was co-player of the year with Adley Rutschman. So I'm excited about Stowers. I'd like to see what he's capable of doing at the major league level. I'm not sure how long he's going to be up here. You don't want to keep him as a 4th outfielder if Santander is going to be back in a few days. I think if a Santander trade happens to materialize pretty soon, we could see Stowers back shortly, but you don't want to keep him in the Ryan McKenna type role where he's not going to get a ton of playing time. Right. Obviously, he's not going to be starting over Mullins or Hayes, likely not Santander. So I'm curious to see what happens this series, and hopefully he's back before we know it.
John.
Yeah, I was looking at some of his numbers, and you hit the nail on the head, Ryan. His strikeouts are just. I mean, he's a young guy, but he strikeouts out a lot. His left on he leaves a lot of guy on base too. I was looking at that. He left 119 guys on base in 2019. He had about what is it? 228 plate appearances 2019, 530 plate appearances in 2021, and he left 208 guys on base. So he leaves a lot of guys on base, and he strikes out a lot, and he grounds into a lot of double plays. He grounded into 10 double plays in 2021. So he does a lot of the things that you don't like: strikeouts, grounding into double plays, and leaving guys on base. Like, those are things you don't want your hitters to do. But like you guys said, I mean, he was co-player of the year, and he's a good young prospect. I mean, I can't be too hard on him. He's a young guy. I'm not going to freak out and say, well, he strikes out a lot. I mean, baseball players strike out. Like, it happens. You leave guys on base. It happens. I'm just excited to see what he does. I'm happy that he's down in the bottom of the order today, like starting batting eighth. I'm happy about that because I don't want too much pressure on a guy like that. He's making his major league debut. So eighth is where I'm perfectly happy with. How about you, Paul?
So I agree with you that batting eighth takes the pressure off of him, and I think that's the appropriate spot to put him, while still keeping the speed of Mateo at the bottom of the lineup there to turn things over for Mullins. The strikeouts are the big thing that's going to concern anybody when it comes to any player, any prospect for that matter. And I look back to spring training when he got a lot of playing time, and they were batting him fourth almost every game that he played, and he struck out a ton this past spring. Then he got off to the slow start, but the bat's been heating up the last 6 weeks or so, driving the ball out of the ballpark. He's got 28 extra base hits right now, just between the homers and doubles. I can't remember if he has any triples, but this is a guy who we're anxious to see. And look, the strikeouts are going to come. I wouldn't be surprised to see him strike out multiple times in his debut. But for every 2 to 3 strikeouts, he's probably going to hit a couple of home runs too. So this is somebody who I'm excited to see. I really don't think it's anything more than a cup of coffee for these 4 games in Toronto. And then when they get back home, it's going to be Anthony Santander back in that line, patrolling either left field or right field. And I think this is just a preview of things to come because honestly, guys, like Ryan alluded to, I do think Santander is traded before too long this season, and then the job is Stowers to lose under his own merit. So now Rico Garcia, haven't heard too much about him. He hasn't pitched in the major league since 2020. He's coming off Tommy John surgery last season. Has a 1.93 ERA and 18 2/3 innings pitched at 3 levels between Aberdeen, Bowie, and Norfolk. And he's averaging 14 strikeouts per 9 innings, 29 strikeouts in those 18 2/3 innings for the Orioles minor league system. Like I said, don't know too much about this guy, but this is a guy who seems like he has a live arm, and he's going to get an opportunity here this series in Toronto.
Yeah, they definitely
Yeah,
can.
I don't have extremely.
Go on, Ryan.
Sorry, I don't know if my
That's
internet's cutting out or what, but
think
I
it's a
don't
bit
have
of a
too
delay.
high expectations for Garcia. Might be. Um, I think he was a waiver claim in the offseason. He's got some upside, like you said, Paul, coming off Tommy John surgery. Decent numbers this year, but I don't think he's a big part of the future. If he plays his way into that role, like a lot of relief pitchers have for the Orioles these last couple seasons, then I'm all for it. But we'll see. I don't have super high expectations. Like you said, I don't know much about him either, to be honest. Aside from I saw some people saying this could be a good under the radar waiver claim when it happened in the offseason. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I mean, he could eat up innings in these 4 games. If he's just there for 4 games, then, if you need to, if things go bad, and we've seen how the Orioles have had some of these series where it's a 4-game series and 2 of the games go bad and 2 of the games the pitching is really good. So he might just be able to eat up innings in 1 or 2 of these games for them and just kind of save the bullpen. Because we know the bullpen's been taxed a little bit here and there lately. So that'd be nice to kind of eat up some innings. But the bullpen has been pretty good. It's just they've been taxed a little bit more than I'd personally like them to.
Well, yeah, the starting pitching has started to falter a little bit, so the bullpen's been having to pitch more. And while they're still pitching well, yesterday was not a banner game for them, and that brings me to it. We're going to jump ahead a little bit and then come back to some other topics. Brian Baker, ERA sitting at 6 even after his outing yesterday, where he allowed 2 hits, a walk, and 2 earned runs without recording an out. They liked his ability to go multiple innings. You've seen when they've had to do bullpen games, he's been the guy to come in and make the start and go a couple of innings. I think he even went 3 in his first bullpen game start. I I just wonder how much more you can really trust this guy. He's by far and away the worst arm that you have in your bullpen. He does hit the mid to upper 90s with his fastball, but a lot of times it just sits there. Location isn't always great, and he seems to give up a lot of hits and a lot of runs. Could his demotion or DFA be the timing that they need, and this is all speculative here, to maybe bring up DL Hall and fill that role of somebody who maybe can piggyback with a Tyler Wells or give you a spot or give you a start here or there where he can give you 3 to 5 innings. What do you guys think about that idea? And is it time for Brian Baker to go the way of the dodo as far as the Orioles are concerned?
Go ahead and start this one off, John.
Yeah, I guess I'll start this one. I mean, I think that we've seen basically the core of the bullpen. They know basically who they like. So you would want somebody better. It's not hard to get better, but they still, like you said, they like his ability to eat up some innings. So you would have to have a guy that's going to be better than him before you're going to DFA him, right? So that's why you obviously have to, because of the restricted list, you're calling up a guy for 4 games, but it's kind of like you're testing out to see what you got, what else you got. You might be able to call up Hall eventually. Although, I mean, like I mentioned, you have your core in the bullpen. Guys like him they're just bonuses. Like that's what you're trying to shore up the rest of the bullpen. You know what you have. You want to fix the rest of it, and then you're good to go. I mean, you've been saying, Paul, and I read your tweets, like this team isn't the same as years past. Like they're starting to turn a corner. Like this isn't, we see the tweets where at this point in the season last year, the Orioles were so bad, but this year they're a lot better. Like this team's turning a corner. Yeah, they might not make the playoffs this year, but you still want them to be in contention each game, each week. You want to go into August and September and there to at least be some contention. So at least for me, if I'm running the Orioles, I want to shore that up, whenever the trade deadline comes. That's just how I see it.
Right.
I don't know what to make of Brian Baker. He's got a 6.0 ERA. He's got a 3.14 FIP, which doesn't make sense to me either because his underlying metrics are not good. He's had some bad outings lately. He started the season looking like he was going to be another strong arm out of the bullpen. Had a lot of guys start the season strong from the bullpen, and Baker's the one who has faltered the most as of late. I'm not sure they're ready to bring DL Hall up yet, although I'd be thrilled if that's the case. I think it's more likely that when we see a guy like Spencer Watkins maybe activated off the injured list, maybe Baker's the odd man out at that point. But I think his leash is getting shorter and shorter each time he comes in and gives up a run or two. He's been giving up a lot of hard contact lately. And so, like you said, John, at some point you've got to make improvements wherever possible. And, Baker's not young by any stretch. I believe I'm sorry if I'm wrong. I believe he's 29 years old.
I think he is.
And so, at some point you have to cut your losses and move on to the next guy, like you said, John.
Now, Ryan, I do want to correct you here, and this might be the first time this has happened in the history of Oh, What a Show.
Oh, no.
Spencer Watkins has been activated off the IL this past week, and he was sent to Norfolk.
Okay. All right. I apologize.
So he's down in Norfolk now. A guy like Brian Baker, I think that his days are numbered because he is the worst arm. But some of these guys have Brandon Hyde in their back pocket for one reason or another, and he seems to really trust and like Brian Baker. And like we said, he likes the fact that the guy can give him multiple innings in a pinch. With DL Hall, and I was just saying this on my other show the other day, if they were to bring him up now, I'd be totally thrilled. But I'm also totally okay with them leaving him down in the minor leagues because he's been good. He hasn't been great. The strikeout numbers are there, but every line seems to be 3 or 4 hits, 2 or 3 runs with 2 or 3 walks and 8 to 9 strikeouts. I would be totally okay with the Orioles saying, all right, let's get 5, 6, 7 dominant starts in a row. When I say dominant, I mean 4 to 5 innings where he's given up a couple of hits, no to 1 run or 1 run to no runs, and keeping those strikeout numbers up and maybe getting those walk numbers down. I wouldn't hate seeing that. But again, the arm is so electric, the talent is so huge. 4 pitches he can throw at any time. If he would have come up to this series, I'd be totally okay with that too.
Do you think that response has anything to do with how Kyle Bradish has performed? Because that's a guy, the same situation where we were excited watching him in the minors this year. we were excited when he got called up, and then he hasn't quite found himself yet as a major leaguer. So do you think that at all plays a factor into it?
Well, for me, and you look at Kyle Bradish, and two of his first three starts were quality starts. You remember that game against St. Louis where he went 7 innings, 4 hits, 2 runs, no walks, 11 strikeouts, and you know that the talent is there. He hasn't been very good since. I will say that in his last 2 starts, 80 pitches, 105 pitches, he only allowed 2 earned runs in each of his last 2 starts, but he's failed to get out of the 5th inning. I think he has a bit of a longer leash because he is so young, because he is a rookie, and they wanted to work through things, and maybe he is. He's got to figure out how to consistently throw strikes. That's been his biggest issue, is not being able to consistently put the ball over the plate. And that's why the pitch count has been so high, because he can do a lot of 2-ball and 3-ball counts. I think that has something to do with my take on, let's keep DL Hall down there and let him figure it out and get a little bit more dominant before we bring him up. Because with a guy like DL Hall, that's a guy that once he's here, you don't want to ever have to send him back down. And the fact that they haven't tried to do that with Kyle Bradish, I think shows you that DL Hall can get as long a leash as is humanly possible. Right. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen with him. And if he's up now, great. If he's up in July or August, that's great too. Whatever it takes to get this guy up here and have him stay here. Now let's move on a little bit here to this series I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Something else big happened this past week that we've been clamoring for, and that was the promotions of Gunnar Henderson and Jordan Westburg. Before we get to the Toronto series, both of these guys have been promoted up to Norfolk. Gunnar Henderson, they want him to get better against lefties. His first AAA at bat, he homers off a lefty. He's 5 for 18, which is a .278 batting average, but already 8 walks and just 3 Ks in 6 games, 27 plate appearances. Jordan Westburg, 10 for 22, 2 home runs, 7 RBIs in 5 games. Only the 1 walk, but these guys have hit the ground running in Norfolk, and they look like the real deal. Are we looking at potentially the starting left side of the Orioles infield on the opening day in 2023?
I think it's a definite possibility at this point. They came up. I expected Westberg to get called up not so soon after his rough start, but he's been scorching hot as of late. Mm-hmm. Henderson has been deserving all season. I thought they were going to take it a little slower with him, but it's certainly nice to see them both get the nod at the same time. That Bowie infield was getting pretty crowded over there. But Paul, you mentioned the stats. Westberg 10 for 22, 5 extra base hits, including those 2 home runs. Gunnar Henderson with a .519 on-base percentage in his time at Norfolk so far. So they've picked up right where they left off, and I certainly hope they continue that trend, because these are 2 very, very exciting prospects who, I think if they continue on this trajectory, if they're not September call-ups, I think they're absolutely in the running to crack the team out of spring training.
Yeah, for me, I mean, like you mentioned, as long as Henderson can get better at against lefties, that's the big thing. I mean, whenever you struggle, if you struggle against righties or lefties, one or the other, and you make it to the majors, I mean, those pitchers are going to kill you. The pitching coaches, I mean, they're going to kill you. They know exactly how to attack you. So that's something I want to see him get better at before I even worry about him getting up to the majors. Work on that. Maybe, like you said, maybe get a little bit of September call up and then work on that in the off season. Work. Take care of that in the off season, and then come opening day, maybe we see him on the roster. That's all I want to see. Because other than that, I'm excited to see him call up, but I don't want it to be too soon. I want to make sure that these guys are good and ready, and we don't rush it.
Well, there's a couple of things about Gunnar Henderson that we have to keep in mind here. The big thing that he needed to work on last year was his strikeout to walk ratio. While he walked 56 times last season, he struck out 143 times. This year, at both AA and at Bowie. At both AA and at AAA, he's had more walks than strikeouts. So something that he needed to work on in the offseason, he did it with flying colors. You also have to keep in mind that he didn't face a single pitcher that he was older than at any point at AA. He's now 9 months younger than any other player at AAA this season. So this is a guy who's not even going to be 21 till the end of this month on June 29th. And when's the last time that we saw somebody 19, 20 years old make it to the majors for the Orioles?
Right.
Manny Machado in 2012. Yeah. And this guy has a chance to be a really special perennial all-star. And I think he could be here at 21 years old in Baltimore. That's exciting because you look at the Padres and the Braves and the Nationals with Soto, Acuna, and Tatis. And those guys all got here 19, 20, 21 years old. I mean, you saw Juan Soto celebrating World Series victory, getting a champagne bath, and he was 20 years old. That's just an exciting, really inspiring thing to see somebody that young in your organization maybe make it to the big league. So I'm super excited about that. Still a really young kid who's doing a hell of a job at AAA.
I also want to point out that that home run you mentioned off a lefty in his first AAA at bat, that came off of Ethan Small, who is he got a cup of coffee in the majors just a couple of weeks ago with the
Right.
Brewers. He's the top-ranked pitching prospect in a Brewers organization that has been phenomenal with developing pitching. So certainly a good thing to see. We'd like to see him improve against left-handed pitchers. There's significant difference in those splits between righties and lefties. But if he can work that out a little bit, like you said, Paul, he attacked the strikeout to walk ratio. If he can get a little better against lefties, he's one of the most well-rounded players in the minors, and like you said, only 20 years old already at AAA. So there's a lot of excitement around Gunnar Henderson.
Somebody that could easily be a top 10 prospect by the start of next season. I for one, can't wait. Now, I know we're running out of time here, so we got to hurry things along. Orioles open a series tonight in Toronto, a 4-game set. Kyle Bradish going up against Alek Manoah tonight. Then you have Jordan Lyles versus Yusei Kikuchi, Bruce Zimmerman versus Jose Barrios, and Tyler Wells versus former Oriole Kevin Gausman. Let's start with Manoah. First in the AL and third in Major League Baseball with a 1.81 ERA, tied for second in the AL and the majors with 7 wins. Toronto could have a second consecutive Cy Young Award winner after Robbie Ray won it last season if this continues. Going to be a tough matchup for the Orioles tonight. Ryan Mountcastle is 3 for 7 with 2 home runs and 3 RBIs against Manoah. Mullins 2 for 8 with a home run. Nobody else has out there had success or faced Manoah yet. Thoughts on tonight's tough series opener?
Manoah's dirty. He's a really, really good pitcher, and he's going to be a thorn in our side for quite some time as long as he's with the Blue Jays. I don't have super high expectations for tonight. I'd like to see Bradish pitch pretty well. Hopefully he can keep up a little bit. I'm excited to see Gausman, obviously for selfish reasons. I hope we beat him up a little bit. But it's nice to see him having success, even if it's for a division rival. So, if we can take 1 or 2 of these games, I'll be pretty happy. My expectations aren't much higher than that. But in terms of tonight, I just hope the offense can do a little damage to Manoah's almost pristine ERA.
Sean?
For me, I mean, if I see anybody in a division rival's uniform, Kevin Gausman, you're an enemy to me. So I hope he fails to no end, because you're in a Blue Jays uniform. You're no longer in an Orioles uniform. So there is no love for you here. It's Orioles or bust. Anyway, I'm hoping, for me, Bradish, I'm hoping that Lyles and I'm hoping Zimmerman can find their strides. More so the other two than Bradish. Obviously, we all want Bradish to succeed, but I want Lyles and Zimmerman to find what they had earlier in the season. That's what I want to see. I want to see them start to find that again, because I've been watching your tweets, Paul, and you've been talking about how we need to see those guys what they were at the beginning of the season. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm hoping that they can get back on track. I'm not worried about the offense. I think the offense will be fine. They always figure it out some way, somehow in these series. Even whenever the pitching looks really good for the opposition, our offense seems to find its way around. But I want to see the starting pitch go deep, and I want to see them pitch really well with quality starts. So that's my hope for the series. And obviously, at least a split. 4-game series, I always ask for a split.
Yeah, you never want worse in the split, and Barrios and Kikuchi aren't off to the greatest of starts. Both have ERAs approaching 4.5 to 5, so they might be able to steal a couple there. I don't anticipate them winning more than 1 game in the series. Toronto is really good, and it usually just takes some Orioles pitching for Toronto to really get off and running. They haven't quite gotten there yet, and they were my pick to go to the World Series this year in the American League. Hopefully they can get things started after they face the Orioles. John, I love the fire and the passion there. I feel the same way if you're in an opposing team's uniform, even if you are a former Oriole. I'll give you a prime example. Mike Mussina is my favorite pitcher of all time. Loved seeing him win 20 games in his final season, for the first time, by the way, in his final season in 2008. But every time he faced off against the Orioles, I wanted them to pound him into the dirt. It's no different with Kevin Gausman. You can have success against everybody else, but against the Orioles, I hope you give up 6 runs in 2 innings.
Let me be clear. I hope he does not make it out of the first against the Orioles. I'm happy for him as a person that he's found his stride.
Well, he looks like the guy who was number 4 overall pick in the draft in 2012. So that's I am happy to see him pitch that well. Wish he could have done it here, and he wasn't bad in Baltimore, but he wasn't this, and this is what he was supposed to be. And maybe it took him a little bit longer, but he finally got there. So I have no ill will towards him, except for Thursday. Guys, hey, John, you're the grand poobah here. Let me ask you: do we have time to talk about Trey Mancini, or should we save that for next week?
Sure. Let's go for it.
All right. So Trey Mancini been swinging a hot bat all season. Since the start of May, he is slashing 331, 426, 489 with a 915 OPS. He has a 1.7 B WAR in 57 games this year after posting a .8 B WAR for the entirety of the 2021 season. At the beginning of the year, when we did our very first show for Oh What a Show, Ryan and I were both in agreement that it's probably time for Trey to move on. But Trey looks like 2019 Trey here. Trey is tearing the cover off the ball. Are we still feeling the same way, Ryan? Or is it, look, as good as he's been, there's a roster crunch and he's on the wrong side of 30 now. It's time to move on.
Look, I love Trey Mancini. He's a fantastic story. He's a big piece of this organization. He's a big reason why a lot of Orioles fans have stuck around through a difficult time. I personally don't think he has a clear fit on this roster. Mm-hmm. With Ryan Mountcastle playing first base, you don't want to put him in the corner outfield. You can throw Trey at first base to give Mountcastle a spell, but you want Rutschman in the lineup more often than not. He's going to be taking some spots at DH. You want to be able to rotate your outfielders. They're going to need some DH time. I think if you can get a decent return for Mancini, I think you have to do it if you're the Orioles front office. If you look at his Baseball Savant page, the only metric in which he is below average is sprint speed, which is to be expected for a first base DH type. 92nd percentile in expected weighted on base average, 93rd percentile expected batting average, 89th percentile expected slugging, and a lot of other red on that page. Having a really great season. I think there should be some type of market for a first baseman, and especially a guy like Trey with the DH now across all 30 teams. As I said at the beginning, I love Trey Mancini. It would hurt my heart to watch him go, but I think at some point it becomes necessary, and we're getting close to that time.
John?
Yeah, this isn't a Nick Markakis. This isn't an Adam Jones. This isn't Manny Machado. Like, this isn't any of those guys. No offense to Trey Mancini. I love the story. I think the story with the cancer and everything, I think that's a big reason why people they feel so close to him. I think it sounds harsh to say, but if that never happened, if that wasn't part of his story, Oriole fans wouldn't feel close to him. He's done nothing as an Oriole to where you can say, wow, I really want to keep Trey Mancini. Like, he shows glimpses of this great power, but then there's also times where he goes cold and you're like, we know that you're better than this. So much like John Means, I think of it like John Means. Remember when John Means threw the no-hitter? Mm-hmm. And that's when I was thinking, okay, it's time to get rid of this guy, because it's kind of like when you play fantasy football and somebody's at their highest value and you're like, now's the time to sell. But John Means that then for me, it was time to sell when that no-hitter happened. That was as high as his value is going to go. Trey Mancini's having a nice season. It's time to get rid of him, get something out of him before he starts to go cold for a month straight. And then you're like, man, his value isn't as high as it was a month ago. Like, that's how I see it. It's a business. Like I said, we all love the story and stuff like that. We love what he's overcame, and kudos to him, and we all back him. But it's a business, and that outfield's getting crowded, and these prospects are going to keep coming up. And there's just no room for a guy at his age. And we also had the arbitration issue. I mean, the Orioles didn't want to pay him. I think it's just best to get something out of him and move on.
Look, I'm in such a middle ground here. If they trade him, I understand. If they extend him, I understand that too. I'm going to backpedal a little bit from what you said, John, simply because of the fact that he has done quite a bit here. This is his fifth season, his fifth full season. He missed 2020. He's hit over 20 home runs in every full season. He's hit over 290 in each season in which he wasn't either hurt with the knee injury or coming back from cancer. He's never. You look at 2017, he hit 291 with 24 home runs. 2019, he hit 297, I want to say, or maybe it was 291 also. 35 homers, 38 doubles, 97 RBI, so it was 291. And then this year he's hitting close to 300. The power's coming along now. He's got more home runs. I think he's got 4 home runs in the last couple of weeks, so the power's coming back. And he's been robbed 3 or 4 times by that big new wall out there in left field. What he's doing with the bat, he looks like 2019 Trey, and that's a damn good player. If the Orioles were to extend him for 3 years, I'm okay with that because they don't really have anybody that they're blocking at DH. You might think, okay, well, what if Heston Kjerstad comes up? But he's played 3 games. So this is somebody who I could see being a part of this organization for the next few years, given the opportunity to taste a little bit of success since he's stuck it out through all of this. But if they trade him, I don't know how much they'll get for him, but I totally understand the move. Either way, I want nothing but good things for Trey Mancini. If the best thing for him is being traded to a contender, then so be it.
I guess the way I see the success for him is like when the prospect that he was when he came up, like we saw what Manny Machado did when he came up, and just like night after night, it was like big play after big play, which was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said with Trey Mancini, it's like we haven't really seen him carry the team. Like for me, I've seen glimpses, but then there's times where you just kind of sort of forget he's there, if that makes sense.
You know what I mean? Like he's the best offensive player on 110 loss team.
I guess
108 loss team, right? Yeah. So I get what you're saying there. Yeah. But that's also a bat that probably hits in the middle of any successful team's order also.
True.
And there could be a market for a contender that needs somebody to come in and give them some power to really make that playoff run a little bit better for them. So I get it either way.
Yeah.
I think he's a little bit better player than maybe you're giving him credit for, but maybe I'm also overvaluing him because he's my player, right? So, and then guys, I want to close things out here talking about Adley Rutschman. He has debuted since the last time that we did a show together. Triple in his first game, but he's been a pretty big offensive slump to start his major league career. Saturday, he had a 3-hit game, including 2 doubles, and he followed that up on Sunday with a 3-strikeout game. Are we concerned at all about Adley Rutschman? I'll go first here. I'll tell you, I'm not concerned. All these other top prospects that made their debuts this year got off to slow starts. He's still in his month of April for his season. They all got off to slow starts, and we just saw Bobby Witt just tear the Orioles apart for 4 games. I'm not worried about him, but I understand that some people, there's some trepidation there because he is, when he came up, you have Ben Boom and Chirinos. He's batting 141, and that's pretty close to where Rutschman's average is right now.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, you want a guy like Rutschman to come up and hit the ground running, but the fact of the matter is that not many top prospects have done so. C.J. Abrams broke camp with the Padres and was sent down in a couple weeks because he wasn't hitting well. Spencer Torkelson still hasn't figured it out quite yet. Julio Rodriguez and Bobby Witt are there, but they struggled pretty mightily at the beginning as well. But no, I'm with you, Paul. I'm not worried. He's going to be just fine. He's done wonders with the pitching staff. They all love throwing to him. He's an excellent framer. He's bought a few strikes in big situations for the Orioles, which is something that Chirinos and Ben Boom were not really able to do. So as long as he stays in the lineup, he's going to find his stroke. He's too good of a player not to. We've seen him go through extended slumps in the minor leagues as well and figure it out and put up great season-long numbers. So, no, my level of concern at this point with Adley Rutschman is close to 0.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at Bobby Witt's stats. He's only hitting 244, just 8 home runs so far. Like, it's not like Bobby Witt has figured it out himself yet. You know what I mean? Like 244 is that's nothing great for a guy that's supposed to be a lot better than that. You know what I mean? Like all the hype coming into the season. So, but I am concerned a little bit with Rutschman. I would like to see him moved down in the lineup personally, just to take, like I said with Stowers, just to take a little bit of that pressure off. Put him a little bit lower in the lineup so he doesn't feel like he has to be the guy. Let him bat 7th, 8th, 9th, somewhere down there, just so he's still focusing on catching. He's still focusing on that, and he's focusing on hitting. He's a young guy that just got caught up recently, so I would like to see him lower in the lineup just so he doesn't feel as much pressure. I'm not freaking out, but that's the only ask, and I've been wondering that for a while.
Well, and then you look at Rutschman, and in that game where he had 3 hits, he became the 6th Oriole this season. To have a game where he had 4 balls hit at 95 miles an hour or harder, his first at bat, he lined out to center field at 106 miles per hour. There was a game a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember who they were playing. Oh, they were playing Cleveland, and he could have had the game-winning base hit or the game-tying base hit in extra innings. Hit a line drive that had a 960 expected batting average, and the second baseman, was in the shift, playing basically right on the right field line, and he made the catch for the final out. He's hit into some really bad luck. There's been some diving plays made against him too, so I'm not concerned in the least. I think the bat's about to get going, and we'll see how he goes from here. Hopefully it starts tonight in Toronto. Guys, that's going to do it for us here on Oh, What a Show. Thanks to my co-hosts Ryan Blake and John Shearer, and for both of them, I'm Paul Valley. This has been Oh, What a Show.